We've got a couple more callers that I would love to take. Let's move on to Chelsea in North Carolina. Chelsea, you are live on Skeptic Generation.
That I am. How are you?
I am good. Let me turn down your volume. You were coming in loud and clear. I want to make sure that we are even. What did you want to talk about today?
Shoot. Sorry. It happens every time. Like I know what I want to talk about, and then I get so excited, and it just
No
stops right at my
worries.
mouth.
That's okay. Let me help. It
I'm being
says
autistic, I guess.
that's
I
okay.
hate it. But
On
anyway,
it
how
says
do you
go ahead.
go ahead?
Oh, I
And
was gonna
you
kick
go
it
ahead.
off.
Make it faster.
No worry. It says in the notes that you want to talk about what's the best way to meet people where they're at and have productive conversations. Does that sound about right?
That's right. That's
Y-
correct.
y- yeah.
Yeah.
What set this off?
Nothing really set it off. I just thought it'd be a good conversation for the show, honestly.
I
Because
appreciate that.
we're me and you are we're talking right now, and we're like the subject is how do we best talk to people, not to necessarily change their mind, but just reach them where they're at.
Yeah. So
Does that make sense?
it does, and it really depends on your relationship with those people. So, are you talking more
Yeah.
about strangers and wanting to find places to have those conversations, or are you talking about strategies for talking to friends, family, loved ones, coworkers, or like what, what's the context around this?
Um. Really, it's anyone. So, are you saying, since you're saying either or, do you mean, I'm just asking for your perspective? Do you mean if it's either or, this and that, does it
Does
differ between how you talk to them?
absolutely,
Hmm.
absolutely. So, I think the first would be, the people who are closest to me, right? My close family members and things like that. When I really started that whole deconversion process, and once I realized I'm an atheist and I was watching atheist shows, I wanted to talk to believers because I wanted to kind of reenact the kinds of conversations that I was seeing online. At the time, I was watching a lot of Matt Dillahunty, and I wanted to have my own Matt Dillahunty moment, even if that came at the
Uh,
expense of my family members, you know, who are going to get slammed and owned. And he doesn't even use that language, but the fans do. Um, but yeah, I
I
think
don't like
that
it myself.
no,
I
but
don't.
but for a lot of people who leave their religion, at least for me, I was really angry, and it was really
Yeah, I
satisfying
mean,
to
I
me.
can see where it'd be a utility. There's utility in getting out your anger, but is it
Yeah.
productive? Is the question.
Well, at the time I wasn't thinking about that, but I will tell you that when you want to have those kinds of conversations that are aggressive, families maybe not the people to have those conversations with, because there's a cost
That's
benefit
right.
analysis to, how important that is to you and how important those relationships are to you. And, what kind of, things are you doing to have a positive relationship with people that you love, and what are the benefits and the costs. So that is a different thing, right? And that is not taken into account when you're talking to a stranger, right? There are street epistemologists. If you check out Anthony Magnabosco or the
Hmm.
many, many street epistemologists on YouTube who are amazing, they have a full methodology that they've used to set up and be able to initiate, not initiate, instigate, I think is the word, these
I,
conversations with
I don't
strangers.
know. I'm not good with words anymore.
No worries. It's not instantiate. I think it's instigate. But either way, to start these conversations with believers about what they believe and why. And there's a whole kind of structure around those questions and how to interact with it that I think is, I feel like it's a lot nicer of a way to start those conversations with strangers, because strangers don't necessarily want to have those conversations with you. And so confronting random people on the street can make you an asshole if you're not if you're not careful. And I feel like
Hey, I
street
got a story about that.
about being an asshole
If
on
you
the
don't
street.
mind. Not an asshole necessarily, just angering someone with just being calm and collective and just having a polite conversation, but yet they would get angry
Yeah,
about what I was saying. because it's so they're so opposed to what I was saying that it just infuriated them.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously I feel completely opposite of what they felt. Here, let me just tell the story. Is that all right?
As long as it's not so, like a really long one, because I tend to lose people who are viewing if they're long stories. But if it helps contextualize what we're talking about, then sure.
Yeah, it helps, but I'll try to keep it as short as possible.
Okay.
I can go on tangents, so just if I ever tangent, just
As an
get me back on
experienced
track,
host,
please.
I'll rein you in. I promise. Go for it.
Okay. Um, so I was at my friend's workplace one day, and I was just there to visit, talk, chat with him. He said I could do that, so I could just visit him and talk. However, while I was waiting to talk to him, he was helping another customer in the back, and when that customer had a husband, her husband, I was talking to her husband and this other random dude. Um, strangers. They're strangers. They're both strangers to me. I
Okay.
don't know them.
Yep. Moving on.
And the subject matter was like, let's just say I can't remember exact subject matter, but it
I,
was something about police.
okay.
And by the end of the conversation, the husband left before because the okay, let's just say this: the husband left before the conversation ended, and I think the husband embarrassed himself and the other guy that I was talking to, because the other guy, he shook my hand afterward. He appreciated my calm demeanor, even though he
Yeah.
disagreed.
Yeah. And I, being able to approach things like that is admirable, and it's not always necessarily achievable. So yeah,
Yeah.
having those specific conversations, um, I have found there are groups of people, both in religious and non-religious communities, who are dying to have those dialogues. And I know that recently I had Elliot, Secular Rarity, on as a guest, who you're in North
Hmm.
Carolina. Um,
Yeah.
I believe Elliot's in Tennessee, but there are groups, um, especially throughout the South, where believers and non-believers will get together and talk. If I were you, I'd look up like the Bible and Beer Consortium, or
That's
other.
in North Carolina.
I'm sorry.
That's in North Carolina.
I so it was all over the place. It was in Texas and numerous places throughout the South.
Okay.
There are definitely some really really cool places to be, and I know that there are some churches that really really enjoy having non-believers to come in and talk that kind of stuff out. Um, if
Yeah.
I were you, I think that to scratch that itch, see if you can find local community things where you can do that in person, and find
Believe
those
it or
people.
not, I already have.
See, there you go. It
Um,
sounds like you're doing fine then.
yeah, and believe it or not, it's a freaking church. I have not been to church in a long time. Well, that's a kind of a fib right there. I haven't been to my old church in a long time. Like ever since I got new family, chosen family, I've been going to their church. I'm still not a believer. I just go there for community as well as just to listen, and maybe I might jump in for my own 2 cents, and they don't mind that either. They like dialogue. They don't
Hey,
push me away. Like they don't shut me down. Sit down, shut up. Your opinion doesn't matter. They don't do that.
that's a lot
They
better
want
than
to
my
hear what
church.
I have to say. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Hey,
I feel completely welcome there.
I'm glad.
And mom is a pastor there, so that's probably why.
Aw, I love that.
Yeah.
I do you know how often I talk to PKs, pastor kids, who don't have a relationship with their family anymore. The fact that you have a chosen family that loves you, supports you, and has brought you in, even though like that's beautiful. See, if we lived in a world where more people were like that, I wouldn't do this show. Um,
Tell me
that,
about it.
yeah, but I'm happy to hear that that's the case for other people. Chelsea,
Yeah.
thank you for calling in, and yeah, when it comes to that, I think you have found a best way to meet people where they're at. So
Aw, thanks.
yeah, sounds like you're doing great.
And you're doing great too. So I don't want to hear you say I'm not doing that great, like, with like conversation stuff, because you are. You're doing good work out there
I really
yourself.
appreciate it. Thank you. Thank
I
you.
like your takes, like not just like it's calm demeanor. I like calm demeanor over just you know being rash and all that.
Me too. I know that it's not as like exciting,
Yeah, it's not as exciting.
yeah, it's
Oh,
not
sorry, I'm
as,
talking over you.
no, that's okay. It's not as clippable. But you know what? It's something I love to do, and I think that it's something that we need to have good examples of, and so I'm happy to do it. Chelsea, I'm going to move on to the next caller, but thank you for calling in. It was nice
No
talking to you.
problem. Nice talking to you too. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Whew, okay. We have a related call next, and I kind of just want to roll into this. We have Pete in California who wants to discuss tactics in converting slash deconverting people from ideologies and how sometimes atheists talk past their audiences. Oh boy, Pete,
Some
you
atheists.
some atheists, a lot of atheists. Oh my,
Yeah, I
I'm.
think you know.
Oh yeah, I
You're
mean,
pretty good at.
ah, I can be a bit of a
I
prick.
mean,
I
well, I mean, sometimes that's got to be there in
fair,
the old toolbox, as somebody recently stated.
fair enough.
But yeah, I was just wondering. I listen to a bunch of these, and there's a bunch of people who call that could be flipped easily, and they don't get flipped,
I
and that's
disagree.
kind of depressing a little bit. But
Why? So what?
and then there's all the other things too about talking past one another, and
Yeah.
sometimes some hosts will speak on such a higher plane that there's no way your caller even understands a third of what the host is saying.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
That's not very productive.
Not necessarily. There are places for it. I personally put it in the category of navel gazing, and I love navel gazing. It is fun to get real deep into the arcane, pieces of some philosophies. But I agree, and at the same time, I don't think that necessarily most people can be flipped the way you're saying it. When you say flipped, in my mind, it
But
sounds like you're saying flipped from believer to non-believer. Is
a
that what you're
change
saying?
of mind, a
Really?
change of mind. Yes,
I highly doubt that. Why? What makes you think that that's the case?
because I've done it 100 million times. There's, I'm from Modesto here, and if there's people listening from Modesto, they know me. And I mean, religiously, I went to church here for a long time,
Mhm.
and not any longer. But I've been able to talk to people and get them to see a different point of view.
Okay.
And it's not hard, and it's not, and this is the thing. I mean, this is why I was asking about the mission statement, because it's not always about the facts. It's a lot of time it's just about the hearts and minds of the people you're talking to, and when you can recognize the wheel spinning and who you're talking to, it's not hard.
Well, it depends. I mean, when I hear that someone has flipped their opinions over and over and over again, my question for
That's
them,
bad.
yeah, my question for them is how are they grounding their understanding of the world? What is their epistemic justification for the things that they believe? And whether we come to the same conclusion or not, I want to help them have better reasons for believing the things that they believe. And so,
Absolutely.
yeah, and that comes with a lot of reflection, investigation, and reapproaching the same issue over and over again for most people until they can kind of
There's a
wrap their head around
depressing,
the difference.
there's a depressing aspect to that.
Yeah.
I'm somewhat of an engineer and inventor,
Okay.
and I have invented so many things just to find out that some prick already did it, that it makes me angry. So when I hear all these arguments, if somebody hits me with what's an evolutionary bullshit about how they think that makes their religion true, I've already got Aaron Ra. You've got the young doctor with the foof on his head. What's his name?
Student
Damn it.
Dr. Ben?
I wish I didn't have to relearn everything every morning. What's that?
Student Dr. Ben?
I've seen him too. No, Valkyrie?
Oh, Forrest Valkai. Not,
Forrest, yes,
yeah.
thank you. No, these guys can shred these guys, and they have the answers. And to me, it's not worth my time to have to go out and relearn all that unless I was in the field, like they are. Like for instance, Forrest
Well,
is definitely in the field.
I mean,
But
it really depends on what you call the field. I mean, most of us are lay people with normal day
well, in
jobs.
their case, medical and evolutionary field.
So
Forrest
being,
is a doctor, isn't he?
I haven't interacted with Forrest very much, actually. I think that we were kind of ships passing in the night. Um,
Yeah, I think he's heading in that direction, maybe.
yeah, I maybe I should check them out. I've heard a lot of really good things.
But
But
all the things I'm sorry, I don't want to, but all
no,
the things that you were saying are absolutely correct and essential. But I'm just thinking an element, not, like I said, I think you're excellent. You talk to the people, you don't climb up their ass every time they get out of line in any way, shape, or form. And that's all good. And they feel like you're a heartfelt person that actually cares about them. And that's the most important thing right there.
well, I try. I mean,
Right.
to the best of my ability. I just the way that you're approaching it sounds kind of flippant. The idea that it can be done so easily.
No, I wouldn't go so far as to say that.
Okay.
Okay. But, because there's a hell of a lot more to it that's going to get crammed into a however long call this is. I mean, what you're saying, first off,
Mhm.
you got to know you're right. And the thing is that when I say that I do not have evidence for a God, and I most certainly don't have evidence enough that's going to make me sign up and show up
Mhm.
and do all that other stuff. I mean, there's definitely not enough evidence to believe in a God to give your life over to it.
While I agree, what do you mean by you got to know you're right?
You have to know, you have to come correct. In other words, if you're going to say that evolution is correct, know that evolution is correct and have the facts. And you have that.
I think it really depends, because I've found myself having the most beneficial conversations when I don't know. And I'm clear, and
Well, for you,
well, I mean, really, honestly, I think that if you don't know, then that is the best time to explore as much as you can to learn. And that's part of why I want to talk about it, is because if I don't know a thing, I want us to be able to have conversations that are uncomfortable, and they can be really uncomfortable when we don't fully know. And I think that being open to changing your mind, slowly over time, or just bouncing ideas off each other and using each other as a spring. Thank you. That's the word I was trying to find. Yes. To bounce those ideas off of is incredibly important. If you only have conversations that you absolutely know you're right on, it feels like a really boring place to be, because you're only setting yourself up to have conversations that you already know the answer to. I love conversations that I
when I
don't know.
walk into a room and there's people having conversations, I go to the group that they're talking about what I don't know.
See, there you go. Then, well,
See,
then
that's true. Everything that you said is absolutely correct, and I agree.
I,
And it's got to be in there too.
yeah.
Just everything comes together, and the person that you're going to talk to isn't always going to be the person you're trying to convert.
Well, and you're not necessarily always wanting to try and convert anybody. That kind of goes to like the Great Commission ideology. I'm not necessarily wanting to convert anybody. What I do want is for people to have good reasons to believe the things that they believe, and if I have my spin on it, it's to exemplify compassion, empathy, and patience whenever it's appropriate, because those are what I want people to use when they have that conversation with their family. And if they haven't seen it happen, then hopefully they can see it here and maybe have an idea of the way that they want to do that in their own lives. But yeah, I don't know. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about specifically on this call?
It negates my advice I was going to give you, but
What's against the advice?
It negates the advice I was going to give you.
Oh,
Most of the people that call are not as educated and know as much as our hosts.
Pete, what education do you think I have?
May I ask a question to that question, sir?
Sure, why not? Go for it. I'm an open book.
What education do you think I have?
No idea. But I will tell you for myself.
Well, I made it to the 8th grade.
Cheers. I made it to 12th, and
Yeah,
I didn't graduate.
Excellent.
I didn't graduate college.
So that's what I mean by that, is it doesn't really mean anything to me. You know, when I hear you, I hear an intelligent young man, regardless of
appreciate you.
Educational.
But
I recognize people for who they are. I'm pretty good at it, and that's also one of the things that helps me.
Well,
to help people out of erroneous ideas.
Well, the statement you were making sounded like you were saying that most people are not as educated as the host, and I'm a host, and I'm just doing the best I can.
Nice. People are not that smart. I mean, overall,
Pete,
and they're great people. They're great people. I'm not trying to, but when it comes to what they understand, it's sometimes it's so far over their head that I feel sorry.
I don't know about that, Pete. I'm not that smart, and I'm not. I'm occasionally okay, people, but like, I don't know. I feel like
you're not that smart. Will you quit saying smart things like I'm not that smart? Because that's one of the smartest things you can say.
I don't know. What I do know is that
you're an intelligent young man wielding it in a perfect way.
I appreciate that.
Not overlording on anybody. You're not bull rushing anybody. That's intelligent.
I feel like
I'm not trying to blow smoke up your ass
at
all. I swear to God.
Pete, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I just think that the way that I want to begin conversations is as charitable as possible. And so I want to assume that I want to assume that the person I'm talking to is as smart as can be. I don't want to ever make the assumption that somebody is otherwise, because I feel like that ends my ability to listen actively and have that conversation with them. So I don't know.
Could not agree more. In fact, without the ability to recognize the level that the people around you are on, you cannot be. That's practically my call. That's the reason practically that I called, is because, people get run over. They're not being recognized for who they are. They got to be recognized for who they are.
I agree.
And dealt with on that level. That's what I'm trying to say, I guess.
Hey,
when I see something, and I swear to God, Eric, there's been times I've watched these shows, and I do, and sometimes I'll just let them scroll without the sound on, just so that you guys get the credit for the video play.
Well, Pete, I sincerely appreciate that. I think that we've kind of gone far afield in this call. We haven't really kind of dialed in on something. So next time you call, let's see if we can
do what we were trying to do. That's all.
No, I sincerely appreciate that.
Callers, I can understand you not, because you do, in my opinion, a good job.
Well, thank you. I'm going to
be talking to the wrong guy, Eric.
Pete, you are just fine. I appreciate you calling. Thank you.
Well, you have a good day. There's
you too.
A lot more, but move on.
No worries. All right.
Thank you, Eric.
Take care, Pete. Yeah, in the comments, I know some people are saying, where was this call going? Sometimes it be like that. But the best thing I can do as a host is try and find a through line and go from there. That was sweet of Pete, and it sounds like Pete is definitely as an example, utilizing me as a springboard for some ideas. And while I don't necessarily want this show to be a place for that all of the time, hopefully it was helpful.